if you could please turn off your cell phones so they do not cause interference with our new audiovisual equipment. That would be much appreciated. And if you need staff reports, they are on the wall to your right. With that, I'd like to officially call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Moeller.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chilton.
Here.
Mayor Dunbar.
Here.
Please let the record reflect that Councilmember Dorenbecker is absent.
Thank you. With that, I will move on to Pledge of Allegiance, and I would invite our former council member, Stephen Rosa, who's in the audience tonight, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rosa. Let's move on to item 4, adoption of tonight's agenda. Are there any changes or corrections, or is there a motion for adoption?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 5, which is public comment. So if anyone in the audience would like to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda, now would be the time to do so. We're not really able to debate that item, but we would be happy to hear your thoughts or your concerns if there's anyone in the audience. I see nobody moving forward, so we'll just move right on ahead to item 6, which is the consent calendar. Are there any corrections or changes, or is there a motion for approval of that calendar?
Motion to approve consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. That passes as well. We are going to move right on to item 7, which is presentations. But we are going to move item 7A down just a little bit so that we can make sure that Jack Huber's entire family can be here. So, or you are here. You did sneak in. Well, let's get right to 7A then. So, what we're going to do now is have a presentation of a proclamation for Jack Huber, Eagle Scout, for some public service that he just completed. So, Jack, if you could meet me at the podium, please. This is a proclamation for Jack Huber, Eagle Scout Service Project from Troop number 83. Whereas the town has approximately 65 fire hydrants in the water distribution system, and a town standard that requires the fire hydrants to be painted a silver or chrome color does exist, and whereas it has been over 10 years since many fire hydrants have been painted and many are not the silver color required by CAL FIRE, and whereas Jack Huber is a candidate for the rank of Eagle Scout in Troop 83 in Napa and has volunteered to organize the scouts in his troop to paint these fire hydrants in Yountville. And whereas the painting of fire hydrants will improve the visibility of the fire hydrants during an emergency and make the town more attractive to residents and visitors. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, John F. Dunbar, Mayor of the town of Yountville, on behalf of the Yountville Town Council, do hereby recognize the efforts of Jack Huber, and I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to recognize the contributions that Eagle Scout Troop 83 made to improve our health and safety in the town of Yountville. Thanks very much.
Yeah, the Scouts had blast. It was a great project. It went really smoothly. We got everything done that we wanted to. And I just like to thank a couple people. Mr. Wadsworth here, he helped me a lot with planning my budget, like the pre-project stuff, and good support. I'd also like to thank Bobby Byram for helping me plan the project as well. And during the project, wouldn't have gone as smoothly without him because he helped a lot with like shuttling supplies for the scouts and helping keep us organized and doing some work off to the side for me. So he was a great help as well. I'd also like to thank Mike Parts, who's here, and for letting us stop by the fire department after we did a project on the first day, and he let us have lunch there, and we actually got to climb on to the fire truck. So that was a lot of fun, and the scouts loved that. So We got everything done, and it went really smoothly. And it was a lot of fun, and I know my troop loved it, and there's more Eagle Scout candidates that would love to do projects here. This is a great time to do them, man. Do you guys have any questions about how my project went? Anything?
Any questions from the council?
No, other than I saw the saw the work done, and they're sparkly, so it's fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think we might be hearing from Battalion Chief Parks right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, if I may, just to touch on some of the benefits that the proclamation touched on just a little bit, but it's more than just the aesthetics of the whole thing. What the Project 10, what Jack triggered was some side benefits that not only for us, but for the whole community, the community as a whole. When he approached Graham about taking on the project, Graham then contacted us, and we start working together. And what then happens is it forces us to kind of revisit some of those lesser used, lesser maintained items that we may forget about throughout the course of our day. So by Jack taking this on, we then, the station crew then refamiliarize themselves where they all are. We end up remapping them, getting them electronically captured. We had some hydrants that weren't actually on maps that we ended up capturing. The Public Works crew then clears out around some of the hydrants that have been neglected and are grown around, so we get to make room for the paint. They then flush them. Graham, for the first time that I know of, was able to capture some of the data or some of the flows out of them, and that's why you see the tops that are green. That actually means something to us. That actually tells us how much water will actually come out of it. There's a different color scheme, so if you see red or yellow or blue or green, that tells us different ratings. So all these things came about just from this one simple project. So not only does it help the aesthetics, but it, believe it or not, has a pretty significant impact on public safety. So the benefit was to the town members as well as the visitors. So on behalf of CAL FIRE, we really want to thank you very much for the work you put into it, because it definitely increased public safety on your behalf. So,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks.
If I could just add my 2 cents, the fire department did go out and put blue reflectors in front of all the fire hydrants, so at night they can see those. The Public Works crews went and opened all the caps and put never sees on them, so they're easy to open. And also the mapping was given to the Napa County Geographical Information System group, and that's been put into the CAD computer-aided dispatch system. So in all the fire trucks, when they're on a call, a map comes up that shows them where all the fire hydrants are. So there's been lots of benefits throughout the community for this project. And yeah, we enjoyed working with the fire department and Jack and the troop, and appreciate them having hot dogs for the guys out at lunch. So thank you.
And I'm sure you mean easy to take off those caps by CAL FIRE personnel only.
Right. Or Public Works.
Right.
Flush.
Great. Well, thank you, and thanks again, Jack, to you and your fellow troop members. We really appreciate it. It was really an impressive thing for you to step forward and make this all happen, so thanks very much. Now we're going to move on to our next item, which is a presentation. Let's see, we're going to move on to the presentation for a proclamation recognizing local artist Gordon Huther as the founding artist of the Yountville Art Walk. Gordon, if you would meet me at the podium, please.
I'm waiting. Mr. Mayor,
Thanks for being here.
thanks for the
Okay,
invitation.
we'll see you later.
All right. I'm a minimalist. It's all right.
I'd like to go ahead and read this proclamation. It's a proclamation honoring Gordon Huther, Yountville Public Art Walk founding artist. Whereas the Yountville Arts Committee, made up of community volunteers, had a vision for increasing the awareness, appreciation, and involvement of cultural arts in our community. And whereas that vision ultimately led to the creation of the Yountville Public Art Walk, which was approved by the Yountville Town Council in 2009. Whereas implementation of a public art walk requires one critical ingredient, art to display.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Yountville Arts was at the time lacking both sculptures and money to buy sculptures for the project. And whereas the Yountville Arts Committee consulted Napa Valley's internationally acclaimed sculpture artist, Gordon Huther, about how to start an art walk and about his interest in helping to launch Yountville's Art Walk. And whereas Gordon Huther lived up to his reputation for supporting local artistic endeavors by enthusiastically embracing the concept and agreeing to help the cause by providing 4 of his signature pieces created from glass, metal, paint, light, found in recycled materials to launch the Yountville Art Walk. Those sculptures were entitled Reflections, Red Keller, Orange Squares, and Silver Twist. And whereas, at the opening art reception, Huther referred to Yountville as the, quote, town of yes, in recognition of its willingness to embrace and try new approaches. Yountville acknowledges and thanks Gordon Huther for being the artist who said yes to loan both his professional reputation and personal art to establish what is now recognized as a vital and growing part of the Napa Valley art scene. And whereas Huther's confidence that Yountville could create and support the concept of a public art walk set the foundation for our entire effort. As a Napa Valley community leader and successful national and international sculptor, Huther's participation has inspired other well-known sculptors to join our evolving and ongoing art walk movement. And whereas Yountville's art walk is enjoyed daily by local residents and countless visitors to our town, many of whom can be seen posing in front of and taking photographs of these beautiful works of art. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, John F. Dunbar, Mayor of the Town of Yountville, on behalf of the members of the Town Council and our entire community, express extreme appreciation to Gordon Huther for his role in the establishment of the Yountville Art Walk and bestow upon Gordon Huther the honor and title of Yountville Public Art Walk Founding Artist.
Wow, how cool is that? That's a hell of a proclamation. Who wrote this? Stephen?
The community.
No. Well, I appreciate you all taking the time to create such a thing. It's very much appreciated. I really want to acknowledge Judith Caldwell over there because she's the one that got this kind of thing started, and she came to the studio, I don't know, a dozen times maybe, and charmed me, so thank you, Judith, for creating the opportunity for the whole community. When I talked about at that opening reception the town of yes, you might remember I was running for council for the city of Napa, which I was referring to as the city of no, and it's still kind of true. But one of the things that, and I'm not running again. But one of the things that I thought about at that time is that, and I've maybe have shared that with you before, Mr. Mayor, is one of the things I was struck by with Yountville, and I made a little footnote. I've lived in Napa since like '62, and I think you maybe had one paved road back then, and lots of saloons and all of that. So it's changed quite a bit. So y'all figured out, well, we've got all the really great retail, we've got the great landscaping, we've got the great restaurants, the hotels, we got it all going on, but that wasn't good enough for you, and that you realize that the people that come to the valley are becoming more and more discerning, and they have certain expectations, and one of those expectations is they want to see just not natural beauty and beautiful buildings, but they expect that there would be a fair amount of art to be enjoyed, and so you all stepped up, and I learned something last week that I thought you might be interested in, but and it's not very scientific, but I don't know if anybody knows Carts and Crates, Jeff Holmes, by any chance? No? So I've known him since kindergarten, and he always talked. He never stops talking. But anyway, so he's talking, and he says, Gordon, you know what? Yountville is selling more art now even than Santa Elena. So that, to me, is really an amazing accomplishment, if that matters to you all. And I'd like to figure out how that's happening. And I was just sharing with Judith, I'm thinking maybe I'd even open a gallery up here if you guys would have me. So enough about that. I know you got lots of other things on your agenda. So thank you again for this. And now I'll take my girlfriend Darcy here, and we're going to go spend some money at one of your nice restaurants.
Thanks very much.
I'm sorry, I did forget one other thing. I did want to say that the staff, your staff, including this boy over here and that one over there, and they're just a pleasure to work with. They're, as municipalities go anyways, it's been really a pleasure. and easy to work with you guys. So, and I work with municipalities across the country, large and small, so I really know what I'm talking about. So you guys got it going on. Congratulations, and keep up the good work. All right,
Thanks,
thank
Gordon.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Sure. We'll move right along now to item 7C, which is a presentation of the Napa County Mosquito Abatement District's annual report. And I believe we'll be hearing from Stephen Rosa and Wes Maffei, or at least one of them.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Mayor, council, staff, I'm Stephen Rosa. I'm the town's representative of the Napa County Mosquito Abatement District, and I'm the current president. I have with me tonight Wes Maffei, who is our manager. He's done a bang-up job for our district. We are a county-wide special district. We serve all of the citizens and all of the land mass of Napa County, with a couple of exceptions. We've been in business since 1925, and our goal is to protect the health and safety of the citizens and the visitors to Napa Valley, Napa County, and we've done a pretty good job of that since 1925. So, having laid that groundwork, I'd like to have Wes come up and give you some of the particulars and how the district operates.
Members of the council, citizens of Yountville, our district does cover the entire county. We have an operating budget of approximately $1.8 million, and we will go anywhere. So it doesn't matter how remote it is, services will be provided. We cover every type of habitat. We're working with mosquitoes, we work with ticks, we work with yellow jackets. We will provide information on rodents. Our services run the gamut in terms of not only management and control, but also information that's provided, disease monitoring. Here in the town of Yountville, let me put these on so I can take a closer look. In terms of hours of service, since January 1 of this year, we've got 244 hours of services provided specifically within the town limits. Those services can be broken up into inspection and or treatment. In this case, in terms of inspection, we go to a site, we look at it, we make an assessment, we provide information to the caller or the property owner, or if it's owned by the town, we take care of what needs to be taken care of and provide that information to you accordingly. In terms of treatment, we use materials that principally focus on not only public education but biological control. So we'll use a bacteria to control mosquito larvae specific to mosquitoes. We will use insect growth hormones, again specific to mosquitoes. If we have to use chemicals, we will use pyrethrin. We use that mostly as a dust to control yellow jacket nests. So when citizens call and say, look, we're out mowing and we hit this nest, we'll come out, we'll take care of it. It's very specific. For rodent control, again, it's more informational than anything else. For ticks, there is no real effective method to control ticks, but there is information that we can provide to assist folks in terms of what can they do to protect themselves. We do have tick-borne diseases present in the county. Lyme disease, we have found positive ticks, both parts of the East Valley, and so we have a monitoring program and a testing program that is year-round to deal with this. Last year, we encountered tularemia for the first time, which was unusual, and that was in the city of American Canyon. So again, we have a monitoring program. We're coordinating with the CDC. We had one human case, so that was very significant to us, of course. In terms of service calls, we had 32 requests for service here within the town limits. Breaking that down, 12 of them were mosquito, 19 of them were yellow jackets, and one was rodent. In terms of our labor cost, here within the town limits, we're looking at just under $12,000 for labor, and an additional $2,300 in terms of the cost of materials. And that sort of rounds out a little bit of what we do here in the town. Our focus, as I mentioned again, is really prevention and education. So it's important that folks manage the water. That minimizes the need to do a lot of any sort of chemical or even bacterial control. In terms of ticks, if folks are aware of tick biology, if they're aware of the sites that there are issues of concern, and also do some limited vegetation management, you again minimize your exposure. Ticks tend to quest on the ends of tall grass and small shrubs, and so if you've got lots of this and you're walking through it, you're going to pick up ticks. Yellow jackets, the best that you can do is give us a call. We'll come out and take care of it. It's important that if the person knows where the nest is, it's really helpful to us, and then we can go out and we can target it and take care of it. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Does the council have any specific questions? Vice Mayor?
I was one of the Yellow Jacket calls this year. And I think just maybe to highlight it is I actually don't know if the nest in the ground was on public property or my property. It was down at the end of Holly Street. But it's not just public property that you find these on. If as a private citizen, we pay into, I think on property taxes, into this service. And therefore, if you find it at your house, please call. And you guys came out the same day, and I mean, it was a problem, and you took care of it. So thank you.
Yes, and we've also had calls from your parks folks, Public Works. They call us when they find things, and we're out like right away. We try to get to it. If we know we can't be there that day, we will contact you and let you know when we're coming. So, because we know how significant that is. And yes, absolutely. One thing to keep in mind, and I should sort of backtrack a little bit, with yellow jackets, typically they nest in the ground. Occasionally you'll find nests that are up in trees or bushes, but as a rule they're ground nesting. There are other species of wasps that will form nests on the eaves of houses, or they get into the walls of houses. We are not licensed for structural pest control. So if it is in or on a structure, folks will need to call a licensed pest control professional for that, because that's a separate license, and we just aren't licensed for that. But anything that's in the ground, we're on it. We'll take care of it, and we're happy to do that service. And you'll see when the guys come out, they dress up in a moon suit to protect themselves from getting stung, and then they go do their thing. And we encourage folks, when the nest has been treated, please stay away from it, because these guys are ticked off once we shoot that dust down in the nest. Two other things I'd like to just sort of draw your attention to that's related to what we're doing. There's been a number of regulatory changes that have taken effect over the last couple of years. Our district, as of today, in the past we had to have an NPDES permit, but it really wasn't that onerous. This is a National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. It essentially says that the pesticides we use, they don't care what it is, bacterial, insect growth regulator, doesn't matter. It's considered a pollutant and a discharge into waters of the U.S. Well, that's where mosquitoes breed. And so that has changed how we provide our services in terms of the monitoring that we have to do, in terms of the testing, in terms of the costs. And now that a nationwide permit, or well, let me rephrase that. California has issued one of the first permits. Of course, they're going to be first. And this requirement is nationwide, so the other states are trying to figure out how to do this. What that means to us, what those costs mean, we're still sorting out. And we know it's going to be expensive, and it's going to affect us. We just don't have an answer yet, so I just sort of bring that to your attention. The other issue that we're dealing with is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has just released, or will be releasing, their final mosquito management plan for the San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge. Protection of habitat is paramount. It's something that's also been important to us. That's part of the reason why we use the bacteria and the insect growth hormones, which are many, many times more expensive than some of the cheaper materials that are available. Yet, there have been imposed a number of restrictions that are going to make it exceptionally challenging for us to manage mosquitoes in protected wetlands. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service just took possession of Skaggs Island. This is a major mosquito-producing site. The bugs that come off of this place will come all the way up into Yountville. So it is a big, big deal. We're still negotiating with them on this. We're trying to figure out how to make this work. I understand that they're sensitive habitats. We've got clapper rails, we've got harvest mice, we've got special status plants, we've got seasonal wetlands that are significant. So this is another issue that we're dealing with. Couple that with the number of restoration projects that are now underway or are being proposed. Again, we're looking at significant costs and significant issues, and we're trying to plan for that. And so we'll keep you updated as that continues, but that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to highlight also that we received several booklets on various forms of either pests or pest control. And if you could just state again the website and a phone number that people can either get more information or contact you.
Absolutely. The website is napamosquito.org. And our phone number is 707-553-9610. We're Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. There is a message machine, so you can call anytime and leave a message, and we will get back to you. Our goal is to try and have 24-hour turnaround. And that may mean we call you to tell you when we're coming, and or we're going to be there the same day you call, depending on what's going and where the staff are located in the county. But that is our focus.
And to clarify, and this comes follows up a little bit what the Vice Mayor's point was, if somebody sees a problem that's not on their property, they're not getting anybody in trouble or costing their neighbors a fee to get something taken care of. They should still call you.
Absolutely. We encourage as much information as folks can provide us. And again, there are situations, and this is sort of another sidelight, we do have instances where there are neighbor issues. Nice way to put it. And we will get those calls, and we do maintain that confidentiality. And so, again, we will come. There is no cost for what we're doing. We show up, we take care of it, and we will use methods, and we will work with the homeowner or the landowner in a way that is also acceptable to them. So it's not this heavy-handed approach. But public health does, it's obviously a high priority for us, and we do focus on that.
Great. Well, thank you again for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Stephen. We are going to move on now to our next presentation, which is a presentation by the Area Agency on Aging, Representative Christy Lesnowich. I hope that's pretty close.
That is exact.
This is regarding Napa County's caregiver permit process. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members and staff. We really appreciate this opportunity to give you an update. I'm the Vice Chair of the Commission on Aging, and Leanne Martinson is the Executive Director of Area Agency on Aging. We just want to give you a short update on what's happening with our ordinance, and also to thank you again for your prior support of the ordinance. On June 9th, we launched the Caregivers Ordinance and became the first county in California to require a permit for those going into the homes of our elderly providing care for compensation. And this permit does require a background check. And since we have launched the Caregivers Ordinance, other counties in California have been calling us for advice because it's widely recognized that our elders are abused in their homes by caregivers. And since we are the first to do this, we've now become the leaders. In fact, other counties outside of California have called us. So we're very proud to be recognized and a leader in this. So since June 9th, we've been out pounding the pavement because we need to let the people who provide care know that this permit is required, and also we want to educate families and elders that they need to hire somebody with a permit. And as part of our education, we created a video. In fact, James Raymond was very instrumental in doing this, and hopefully we're going to show it right now.
having a little audio difficulty here, folks, in case people are wondering why they're not hearing the video. We are rapidly working to fix that issue.
Okay, so I'm not hearing out of your speakers. Do you have an audio out on this?
You could just bear with us for just a few minutes, folks.
It's so important that Napa County has
There we go.
adopted a caregiver ordinance designed to do
Yeah,
background
it's,
checks on
I don't think you can reach
individuals
to the
who are
right
doing
one. It's still
in-home
too
health
late.
care. As part of the permit process, we determine whether or not someone has a criminal history. Once it's determined that they do not have a
Yeah,
history,
can we start?
they're issued a permit for 1
He
year.
is our district attorney, after all. We should hear his every word.
I've been a prosecutor for over 25 years. When my father was terminally ill, we had to hire someone to care for him in his home. As I left my parents' home about 11 o'clock at night, I realized I had no idea who was spending the night with my parents. That's why it's so important that Napa County has adopted a caregiver ordinance designed to do background checks on individuals who are doing in-home health care. As part of the permit process, we determine whether or not someone has a criminal history. Once it's determined that they do not have a history, they're issued a permit for 1 year. This program is designed to illustrate what can happen when someone has gone through this process as opposed to when they haven't. Our first example involves someone who has not been through a background check.
Hi. Yeah, I'm here for the job. Okay, welcome. Come on in.
Please, have a seat. We are looking to hire somebody who you can trust.
Oh, you can trust me. Everyone says so.
Well, have you had any problems at work or in your personal life?
Who, me? That's funny. How many hours will I be here each day?
Well, do you have a caregiver's permit?
Oh, I don't need one because this is just a private arrangement between us. That's only...
It's caught up to the buffering, so let me try reducing this, see if that helps.
Jump.
Yeah. Try to go back.
just a private arrangement between us. That's only needed for the big care homes.
But I thought...
Oh, you worry too much. Obviously, hiring me will help you with your stress level.
Oh, Tracy? Help me, Tracy. I want to get up.
Yeah, well, I can't take too much money. I don't want to go back to jail.
Help me.
Yeah, I've got it covered. Thanks for another tip, Mrs. Jones. Hello? No, she can't come to the phone right now.
Our next situation involves someone who has been through a background check.
Hi, you must be Joseph.
Yes, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Jones.
Nice to meet you as well. Welcome. Come on inside.
Thank you.
Please, have a seat.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Jones.
Pleasure to meet you. Have a seat.
We want to hire someone we can trust.
I agree. Feel free to look over my references. I think you'll find that everyone has been very happy with me, and I've only left a job when circumstances changed and they didn't need my services any longer.
Have you ever had any problems at work or in your personal life?
I'm proud to say that I haven't. Plus, I have my Napa County Caregiver's Permit. It's required of all in-house caregivers.
What does this mean?
It means that I've had a background check, and I can only get this permit if I don't have a criminal past. I have to renew it every year so they know that I haven't gotten into trouble since the last time it was issued. It's kind of like giving you my references, except my references could lie for me. A background check doesn't. I'm very happy to be part of the permit process.
And is this good anywhere?
No, this is a Napa County program to help protect Napa County residents. It's great for people who live in our community.
That sounds great. What do you think, Mom?
Sounds good to me.
All finished here?
Oh, yes, I'm finished. Thank
Okay,
you.
let me clear this up. I was thinking maybe tomorrow we could go and feed the ducks, too.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
One moment. Hello?
Hey, it's Lori.
Oh, hi, Lori.
How's my mom?
Oh, she's fantastic.
Great.
I was just cleaning up her lunch.
Can I talk to her?
Sure. Let me hand the phone over. I'll be back.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Mom. How's Joseph working out for you?
Oh, he's fantastic. He took me for a walk in the park before lunch today, and then promised to take me to see the ducks tomorrow.
That's great.
We really lucked out on this one.
I hope this shows you why we're so proud of our caregiver ordinance here in Napa County. Elder abuse is real. It's incumbent on all of us to do everything we can to take care of the generation that raised us. Please protect yourself and your loved ones. In Napa County, ask to see a caregiver's permit. If you have questions or need assistance, please call the Area Agency on Aging, serving Napa and Solano counties, at 707-643-1797. Thank you.
Hi, welcome.
Yes, I'm Leanne Martinson, and I am the Executive Director of the Area Agency on Aging. And hopefully you know of our organization for the information that we provide for seniors and caregivers in Napa County. Our role in this is to help. We have partnered with the county, and we process the applications, and you can find more information about the ordinance, the requirements, the frequently asked questions, and you can also make an application online through our website, so you can go to aaans.org as well. I just thought I would let you know that since in the first 4 months, we have processed about 70 applications from individuals. 43 of those have actually gotten permits. The others are still somewhere in the process. And we have also worked with at least 7 or 8 caregiver agencies, and 142 of their employees are presently permitted. So we know that there is an opportunity to share this information with more people, because we know that there are a lot more than 180 some caregivers in the county of Napa. So we hope to share that information and help protect the quality of life, and Napa County is a good place for seniors to age in place. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions, Councilmember Hall?
Actually, yeah, this is a topic that's very important to me. I worked in home health in a prior life, and particularly with seniors. It was with an agency that did service in retirement communities. Do you guys, or have you gone out and done outreach to the many senior retirement communities, including the one here in Yountville, or have you had an opportunity to do that?
We have been to many of them, not me personally, but there's a number of members of the commission who are very actively seeking opportunities to provide community education about the ordinance and things that people can do to protect themselves.
Yeah, those communities are wonderful, especially the ones that are independent congregate housing, but there's all kinds of people that go in and want to provide their services, and typically because they're independent, people can make their own choices. But this would be great information to pass on to those organizations.
Yes.
Any other questions from council? Thank you again for coming and reminding us about the ordinance and giving us that presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks, staff, for navigating that presentation for us. We'll move on now to our next and final presentation, which is a presentation on, it's kind of a special social media community program called Nextdoor.com. And we have Ed Everett here to make a presentation and tell us a little bit about how Yountville is going to participate. Welcome. And actually, we do have a button that can raise that up for you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we think so too.
Tall people
can
get
relate
it.
to it.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and honorable council members. It's a delight to be here, especially in the city of Yes. I think that's really cool. That's quite a compliment. That's wonderful. My background is that of a city manager, 24 years and 35 years in the profession, 16 years in Redwood City and 8 years in Belmont. My passion during that time was beginning to understand that as cities we were paying less attention to our most important infrastructure, community, than many of our physical infrastructures, roads and bridges and pipes. So I associated myself with a group that was working on something to help build community. So what we have is Nextdoor. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but first how we came to Yountville. We beta tested this for a full year in Redwood City because I knew everyone there and it was an easy beta test. And then the decision was for us, where to go next. And I had known Steve when I was down in the peninsula, and he immediately came to my attention, and I said, wow, I know some folks up in Napa Valley. I ought to approach them to be our next group of 10 that we really want to roll this out to. So we're rolling it out. So when I called Steve, the City of Yes said, wow, come up here and tell me about this thing. Is this cool or what? And I said, yeah, I think it's cool, Steve, and I'll come on up. So we're rolling it out in American Canyon, Napa, and Yountville. And as of now, I think Yountville is leading the race to be the first one out of the box. So congratulations. So what is it? It's really a website to connect neighbors. The next slide, please. Our mission is really to connect neighbors so that we can build community and we create safe and friendly neighbors. We know that when you engage neighbors, you have a better and stronger community. We know that technology can be used to do that, and so we know that this is going to be healthy and supportive of the cities. Next. Robert Putnam probably did the most amount of research on this, and he did some national studies, and he called it social capital. That was the term he used in Bowling Alone, but it's still about community. And what he did is he ranked all 50 states in terms of community based on a bunch of indices. And then he ranked them, he looked at just 4 policy areas, the 4 that were important to him: education, crime, physical health, and mental health. And what he found was an incredible correlation. The higher the social capital or community, the higher the educational performance, and it almost was irrespective of the amount of money putting in per child. The higher the social capital or community, the lower the crime rate per 100,000, so you could unitize across states. The higher the social capital, the higher the health index, and the higher the social capital or community, the higher the mental health index. So you see that all of those things every city can benefit from a stronger community. And all of those lead to higher values, property values. So next slide, please. We also know from some national studies, 50%, now it may be different in smaller cities, but on the average, 50% of our residents don't know 50% of their people up one side and down the other on a block, which is sort of frightening to hear, but it's a national statistic that we have. We also know, which really staggered me, some of this data is about 4 years old, but 75% of the people when polled, and this was a national poll with plus or minus 4% variance, 75% said a breakdown in community is a serious or very serious problem. And 80% said that, believe that community building is important, even if it puts more demands on me, which I thought was interesting how they worded, because we think, well, people aren't in community because they're so busy. But when asked about it, it was very important for them. And I just look at that, and even in this split world that we live in, I can't tell you where I've seen 75 and 80% of the public agreeing on something. And those were national statistics. Next slide, please. So this is our sort of logo. What we really hope to do is connect neighbor to neighbor, the one at the top. We think that's what it's all about. And I'll describe how we do that. We then want to connect the neighbors to local government, and we want the local government to be able to post into those neighborhoods. We think that's an important thing. We also think it's equally important to connect neighbors with local businesses. Local businesses are a really strong piece of our community, and oftentimes they get forgotten. And so we wanted to make that connection as well. So that's the concept we're looking on. Next slide, please. So how do they use it? The best way to describe this thing is I sometimes do it like a menu. It's a dash of Facebook. Not too much, but just a dash. It's about 2 cupfuls of eBay and Craigslist. You buy, sell, trade, give away, offer to trade, all of that. It's a lot of Yelp and Angie's List where you ask for recommendations, give recommendations, or just say, I just ate at this new restaurant and it's really great. It's all of those things. And it's a little bit of Google groups and Yahoo groups. You put all those together, however, and you put them in a neighborhood, people can do all of that, and they do it with their neighbors. And what we found in Redwood City, by doing that, people got to know their neighbors. They were so embarrassed because they didn't know the person 4 houses down. But all of a sudden, they began knowing it. What we saw, and this is anecdotal, so I've tried to give you hard data, but I can give you anecdotal data. As neighbors get to know neighbors and connect and begin to feel strongly about the community, they start to move from resident past the customer, which they usually are for us, into the citizen model. And that's really where we want most of our residents to be citizens. If you can click on, go back, and click on, there's a little 90-second video we have. Click on Nextdoor, the very first one there. Yeah, just click on that. There's a little 90-second video that we put together that I think will be helpful. And you can enlarge that. You can pop on it and then enlarge it. Should be, yeah, just down below.
Have you ever needed to borrow a ladder? Find someone to mow your lawn? Or learn when local road repairs will wrap up? There are so many ways our neighbors can help us. But these days, most people don't know their neighbors or how best to contact them. It's difficult to ask for help and advice without being a bother. Nextdoor changes all that with free and private neighborhood websites that make it easy for neighbors to connect and talk about the issues that matter. It's an online place where you and your neighbors can ask questions, stay in the know, and exchange local help and advice. Here you can meet your neighbors, get recommendations for local services, and learn about neighborhood events. Whether you want to spread the word about a new park, find an owner for that bookcase in your garage, or be alerted of recent crimes in your area, Nextdoor makes it easy to keep up with everything going on in your neighborhood. All recommendations are organized and archived, so next time you need a trusted dentist or electrician, you can find a great one in seconds. Nextdoor is a secure website where all members must verify that they live in the neighborhood. You can be confident that your communications stay within a trusted environment designed just for you and your neighbors. Getting started is easy. With just a few clicks, you can get up and running with Nextdoor for your neighborhood. As your neighbors join the website, you build a stronger and safer neighborhood. When neighbors start talking, everyone benefits. To get a Nextdoor website for your neighborhood, go to nextdoor.com.
So that's just a real brief overview. Let me give you a few examples that I pulled out from how it was used in Redwood City. People used it in all sorts of ways, and we were monitoring it at the time because we wanted to know what was happening and how it was going to go on. Everything from one woman posted and said, I need to know a plumber. We have a leak in my backyard. Her husband was an invalid, and so she was asking for a recommendation of a plumber. She said, I think the city's water main is leaking. The water pipe is leaking. So a gentleman behind her responded and said, well, I'm not a plumber, but let me come over, and I think I know what's going on. So he brought his little kid over, and exactly what he thought. He dug it up, and it was the PVC pipe from her irrigation system, and he fixed it. And they become fast friends, and she now babysits for them. And it's that kind of connection that happened over the internet, but then actually got people together. One woman just said, all my tomatoes are coming in, and I can't eat them all, so they're on the front porch in a basket. Please take one, but knock on the door and say howdy. And within a day, 25 neighbors came over, each took a tomato, and she met neighbors from 2 or 3 blocks away. Another use was people used it for normal things. I need a recommendation for a roofer. What we found was when people asked for recommendations, and it was almost intuitive in us, they said, well, so-and-so and so-and-so, but so-and-so is local. And they would make a real point of saying, this guy is local or this woman is local. And that's what we saw happening, and we think it's natural that people like to shop local. There is that sense of pride in it. A last one that I'd give you an example, sort of an odd one. This woman was driving into her house and saw a dead cat. I thought, oh my goodness. And so she actually was a cat lover, so she went to the cat. She called the SPCA and waited for them and said, would you please hold it for 3 days? I guess they generally don't do that. They destroy it pretty quick. It has a name on it. I know it's somebody's, and I'm on this new network, and I'll see if anyone knows the cat. So she, in very strong detail, I didn't know you could describe a cat in that much detail. She described the cat, and a guy phoned in and said, oh my God, I think that's the cat of the people across the street. They're not on the network, but I'll connect you to. Connected the two. They got the cat. They were able to bury the cat. The little kids were delighted and half sad but delighted they could bury their cat. And again, another connection. So we saw that all the time. Let me give you 2 examples of examples that the city benefited from but had nothing to do with. Because again, I think we're trying to move the needle from residents being customers to citizens. Redwood City, like you and everyone else, were having to cut. And they had to cut back the hours on one of the libraries from 32, I think, to 24 hours. And two discussions popped up in that neighborhood right away. One says, oh, ain't that awful? Let's go get a petition and tell the council they're crazy to do that. And one discussion said, look, if they're going to cut us back to 24 hours, let's us tell them what the 24 hours should be. Well, it's interesting what happened. Now, everyone knows this is their website. They know the city's not monitoring the website. This discussion didn't go too far about this one got real active about what the hours should be. And in fact, there was a correction halfway through when some people waded in and said, well, I don't think you're considering the single parents and the double parents who can't get home during the day. It was interesting that when that came up, the group themselves, the citizens, said, oh my God, you're right, we're so sorry, and they revamped it. We didn't follow up. That was sent to the city. They would have been a fool not to say, okay, if that's the 24 hours you want during the week, that's what we'll do. Another very interesting example of how it happened. The city can post into these neighborhoods. And so Malcolm was the person in Redwood City that was vested with the ability to post in. And just on his own, it was last December. We just gotten it up at probably about a month or two earlier. And he posted on it and he said, look, we have cut way back, so our street crew maintenance is very short. We have 6 more weeks before we get all the leaves off. The leaves were late dropping that year, and we had this huge storm coming in. It was one of the El Nino storms. So he just put out, he said, just on his whim, I guess, he says, so if people would like to adopt a storm drain and keep the leaves raked off, until we can come by. He just put it out there. Tuesday, it was a long weekend, and then Tuesday, the Public Works people came in and said, Malcolm, what the heck did you do? He said, oh, I didn't mean to screw up. I just thought. They said, no. We're getting tons of calls from people that's saying, well, when am I on that 6 weeks? Because I want to know when I can quit raking the leaves off my drain. So again, we see the meter moving from customer, city, get the leaves out of my thing, to citizens, I can do that. I can help you with that. That's okay. So those are the kind of things that we've seen. Real quick, we'll give you just a picture of it, and then I'll take some questions. If you click on that, yeah, it'll just show you what, I think maybe that won't come up. If it won't, we'll worry about it later. Is it ramping up? Mm-hmm. Good. For a while. It's a little slow, but there it is. So you can see right there. You can see that's the neighborhood. If you scroll up a little bit, you'll see the postings on the right, over there. Oops. Scroll up sort of gently. Oh, you clicked on the neighborhood, but that's all right. Can I have the mouse?
Sure.
Let's see if I can find it. Let me just go back to the home page. This may be too painful with a slower internet. It's quite rapid. So if you just look up here, you can see the postings on the right. This is a city posting. This is a sample neighborhood. All these people know they're on it, so it's nothing to be out. There were 2 boys that were asking for money. Some people were concerned, so they posted it. There were some responses by various people. These are recent recommendations. This is an upcoming NERT meeting or any neighborhood meeting. They can post it. And what's neat about it, if you're saying I'm having a neighborhood meeting or a barbecue, people then can RSVP, and you know exactly who's coming and where they live. These are some new members. If you come up here, this is the 2 that are most used. One is recommendations. So if a person just brand new comes on and says, I need some recommendations, I need a dentist or something like that. Let's let it load. We're going through the PowerPoint. That's why it's slow. It's good. So you can see the dark ones are people who have made recommendations. A dentist, 3 people have made a recommendation. I could click on that. It'll jump up, and I can say, oh, okay, someone's recommending. He's ready, baby's been seeing Dr. Keller, Dr. Kim, Top Dental. People keep recommending, so it's kind of cool. And lastly, this is used a lot, the buy, sell, free. It's people give away stuff. Someone's junk is someone else's exact need. I had an old barbecue that I just put on, And a couple, we just met him, actually they're behind us and two over, said, oh, my son would, he lives up in the city and he would love a small barbecue like that. We met them, they're delightful people. So in doing this, we begin meeting our neighbors. This was actually real. Somebody had a free baby grand, and it just scrolls right to it and tells you where it is. And so anything from baby grands to trumpets to anything else. The next slide, please. So that's what it's all about. And when we approached Steve, oh, I'm sorry. When we approached Steve, he says, I think Yountville would really like this. So the city of Yes remains the city of Yes in my eyes, and I want to compliment you all. It's very safe. It's written under HTTPS. I'm not a technician, but that's very safe. Google can't search these things. We require that everyone use their real name and their real address. So you must say, I'm Ed Everett at 22 King Street. If I'm nervous and we have some single women that join, they don't want to use their full address on their profile, they can say their name and just say King Street. So it won't show where they are in King Street. King Street in Redwood City is about 10 blocks long, but we know they're on King Street. It's very important that neighbors know that the people on this have been verified. We verify it through the phone or through a postcard or through a credit card. We verify that you live there. We're very rigorous about that. And only people in that neighborhood can be part of that discussion and in that neighborhood. So that's the bulk of it. We're up and running, and I guess we have 10 people? A little over 10, and we haven't done any sort of marketing at all. What we would ask the city is just to let people know it's available, either on your website, and Steve's ready to do that. If there's a water bill or something, you usually post city information. Just post that it's available. Some people will choose to do it, some people will not, and that's fine. Questions you might have?
Questions from the council about this? I have a couple that I'll ask on all of our behalf. One is, and I highlighted this in the report, the site is free to neighbors in neighborhoods and city staff.
Yep.
So there is no cost
Right.
to get started. Is there any potential cost in the future that, okay, so.
None whatsoever. And we don't sell any information. We will not and do not like Facebook, who says they don't and do, I guess. We will not and we do not. This whole privacy thing is crucial to us because that's where community comes from, when people trust it. You break that, you've broken everything, and we will not break that.
And you already addressed one of the two other questions I had about the privacy and the security issue. The other question I have is content control. And who is doing that, and how vigorous is that?
Yeah.
So that there isn't any inappropriate
Yeah.
communication going on the site.
We were very concerned about that. We didn't know. We put on our optimistic hat and said, well, I don't think this will be a big problem, but we need to be careful in Redwood City. Redwood City is a city of about 80,000. We have our share of people like you do. During the year, we had nobody that used vitriolic or uncivil discussion. We had nobody attack anybody. We had nobody use curse words or something that we had to weigh in on. But we did monitor. We were monitoring. We did monitor. There's a inappropriate button that anybody can click on anything. It immediately goes to support. We immediately look at it and we take it down if we don't think it's right. And we'll communicate with that person and say, if you do that again, we'll take you off. That we have a policy about, be neighborly, be civic, be civil. So we didn't find any of those issues, which was actually, we were a little surprised that we found nothing. One person got on the site and thought it was her blog. And so she would post her entire blog. And so we just nicely went on there and said, you can put a link to your blog, but people don't want to read your whole blog. People have to have a choice to do it. So you just put a link. And she says, okay. And there was another woman who was, when the library issue, she got very concerned about it and was posting to the whole city. At that time, we allowed them to post within their neighborhood in the city. We've since not done that. But some other people were complaining and saying, well, what do I care about this? So we went back to her and said, look, what you're saying is legit for your community. Post to your community. But don't post to the whole city. If you feel a need to do that, we will take you off it. Now, these are things we can do just to maintain civility. You could never do that. You'd be filleted if you tried to do that, and I understand that as a city manager for 24 years. But those are the only two comments we made in an entire year. And she said, okay, I didn't know that was bothering other people. And those are the only 2 comments we made in an entire year, and we have all sorts of stuff going on. So we were very pleased that when neighbors know it's neighbors, they really, 95% of what was on there was neighbors just doing neighborly things with each other. They were forming a block party. They were talking about Halloween and what should they do together. They did all of those things, of which the city, in one sense, would be very uninterested in, but in another sense, very interested because they were all connecting. And once they connect, we've found this, once they connect, they turn from customers to citizens. And the best definition I've had of citizens, it's people who are committed to and accountable for the well-being of the whole. And that's really what we need our residents to be. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The only other comment I was going to make is, and Steve may have already kind of educated you about our community dynamic here, where we do have many people that aren't familiar or don't even have access to the internet. We have the California Veterans Home, where it's a state facility, and some folks have direct access, some don't. So there really could not be, even a best-case scenario, complete coverage in our community. But you're basically asking for as many folks as are willing to participate. You think there's a real benefit to those that participate?
We did a survey in Redwood City about a year before I left, and we were surprised because we have a fair percent of what I would consider poor. And we thought that we were trying to figure out what would that digital divide look like. It was amazing. In that survey, and it was a professional survey done, we didn't do it, we had it done, 87% were connected. What we found is a lot of people are connected, a lot of kids and other people are connected just through this device. They don't need an iPad or something very expensive. We will soon have a mobile app. We don't have it yet. And the thing that we're going to work on that we even like even more, we've heard it from all of our customers, from the city of Redwood City, Steve mentioned it, other city managers mentioned it. We will not only have the ability for people to be a member of their community, their neighborhood, they'll be able to form a group. So it could be a reading group, or it could be a neighborhood watch group, or it could be a group that says, look, we understand we're in this larger neighborhood, but the 20 of us in this cul-de-sac would like to have a private group. Well, they can just have a private group. And we would be posting, you would be posting to the neighbors, they would hear that, but they could talk amongst themselves, and it's just for them to set that group up. We don't know when we're going to get that, but we have the engineers working on it. So,
sports teams?
No sports teams. Oh, they could form sports teams, absolutely. Absolutely. Sports teams could do this. Elementary schools could form a group and do this. I thought you said, are we going to get into sports teams? No. We feel that these small groups, why we didn't know this, we did focus groups with a lot of residents of Redwood City, and in one focus group, we got 8 people there who agreed to come, and 2 of them raised chickens. I was surprised. I was the city manager there for 16 years. I had no idea people raised chickens. Our ordinance says you can raise 3 chickens without a rooster. There's a bunch of people raising 3 chickens without a rooster. They wanted to get together. We said, fine, that's a good group. I didn't understand it, but okay.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you very much for the introduction to the program.
And I really want to compliment you for being at the forefront. It looks like you're going to beat out your 2 neighbors, and for Steve for being so open. It is a city of yes, and you ought to be proud of it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, we're going to move right on now to agenda item.
Mayor.
Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, please. I meant to ask members of the public to comment, so thanks very much for raising your hand. Mr. Warren?
My name is Ed Warren. Thank you for hearing me today, city council members, town council members. I think this technological opportunity provides some, I don't know, unknown but possible ways in which to connect our 2 communities, because we do have an east and west part, and perhaps maybe even he might come to our allied council sometime, because there may be ways in which the home part would develop somewhat differently from a model that's sort of assumes, family houses rather than communal living. So I don't know what it might offer, but I would like to see if there might be ways in which this technological opportunity does maybe give us here in Yountville a way to connect our 2 not exactly homogeneous communities.
If I might briefly, we've actually had some conversations, and it's part of our testing. At this point, we are creating the whole community as one community and not pre-selecting neighborhoods so that we can encourage interaction, north, south, east, west. But if you recall what Mr. Everett mentioned, sub-communities and groups, it could very well turn out that within the Veterans Home community, those that are engaged may choose to use this within their own buildings or within a Veterans Home component. So we anticipate, also a great opportunity. We've met briefly with the Chamber of Commerce to try to work with our business community because we really see it as a unique opportunity here, differently than in some communities for engaging the business community. So I anticipate that after a year, we'll see some refinement, and that's part of one of the things that not only are we interested, we offer a unique community that allows Nextdoor to take a look at some approaches, because in Redwood City, Yountville would be a neighborhood.
Right.
Not a community, a neighborhood. And I think that's what makes, a lot of similarity. But as the council knows, one of your strategic goals that you've asked us to work on is improving community building and public outreach. And this seems like a good fit for our community. We do recognize that not everybody does have access, but I know from my own mother, who is aging and forced me to get onto Facebook because I was her only family member that wasn't, that the senior population is actually becoming one of the, they're breaking barriers down rapidly, and they're starting to really utilize these types of services once they figure out how they work.
True. Thanks very much for that recommendation. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Billy Hewitt, 9 Landy Way. I love the idea of building community and knowing your neighbors. In a lot of the neighborhoods, are you aware that they're probably 1/3 non-owner occupied, or weekenders? Like Cindy was saying, she's one of 2 or 3 on her street, and Carla, my neighbor down here, is one of a few. Well, John, everybody lives there where you are. I think that's a negative in building this, because the people who own the houses and come once in a while don't have the vested interest in the community, unless we could somehow network with them also. And I was just going to point out, but Steve already did, a lot of people do not use the computers and do not want to do anything similar to Facebook or social networking. And you referred to we. So there is a support group. How does the support group get its money?
Well, and actually, Billy, if you could go ahead and address
that.
that.
Okay, I'll address that too. That's a question I have.
Okay.
Is this a public service, or somehow there has to be a pay for service somewhere along the line? I think that's a question I have.
Okay, and I'll ask Mr. Everett to address it.
Comments that I have.
And in our staff report, it does address the fact that they're looking at potentially adding advertisers and sponsorships in the future on the site that would, I assume, cover whatever costs are necessary. But I can invite him to come back up and address that issue. Let me just first quickly, if there are any other members of the public that would like to ask any other questions, so that we can have Mr. Everett just get up once. I don't know if there's anyone else that wanted to join in. But also, Councilmember Moeller and Councilmember Dornbecker and I were also at the conference, and some of us had conversations with the Nextdoor staff that was there, and I actually asked specifically about the part-time home ownership, and they, not surprisingly, put a positive spin on that situation, which was that allows the folks that aren't here all the time to be more engaged if they choose to. They can be more connected to their neighborhood group, for example, and log on from wherever they are to find out about activities or concerns or whatever. So, Mr. Everett, if you wanted to address a couple of those issues.
Yeah, they could just, exactly right. Someone who lives, every other month here or whatever, They just give their name and address, and if they're living somewhere else, they will get the posts and everything that's going on in their neighborhood. The issue about we have funding to go for at least another year or two. One of the things that I like about this company is that all of us feel deeply about the mission of building community. It is in our bones, and but we know that we have to make some money to pay for this service. The reason we chose the local businesses because we feel that that is a huge piece of any community. And we think that if we can connect local neighbors with local businesses, we develop that symbiotic relationship between the two of them. We will not even start that. We will not start that process, and we know it's a year to 2 years off until we know we're giving great value. We will give great value, and then we will go there. But we are all on it, all of us that are in next door, and we hate the pop-ups and the banner ads, and we won't go that route. We'll probably work with the local businesses about special discounts or something like that, coupons, and let whatever business wants to provide it, because they're providing it, again, we're not looking at the Safeways and the big, they have their own advertising strategy. We're looking at the very small businesses who probably, for most of them, 80% of their business or 75% of their business comes from within the community. And so we have at least a lot of businesses in Redwood City and a lot of people in Redwood City who says, well, can't we post so-and-so? They're a great little restaurant, you know, you ought to. So people would like to recommend people to be posted on this, and we will do that, but we will do that very sensitively because this is about community, and we will make sure that the advertising does not disrupt the community. That's what this is about. That's what we're committed to.
And there's really no risk to the resident. I think that's one of the points that we were also trying to make. No cost to the resident, no risk. They can get off of the system if they are not satisfied.
At any point.
Yeah.
And they have several ways. They can say, every time there's a post, I'd like to be pinged on my computer, or no thank you. Give me a daily digest so that once a day it comes to me and I can just look at it quickly, or no thank you, don't ever contact me. When I want to contact it, I'll go to the website. We will be building a mobile app as well. So they have options about how they want to be pinged if they want to be notified at all about what's going on.
Great.
So good. Thank you
Thanks
very much. Thank you.
And thanks for those comments and questions from the public. That was good input. So thanks very much about that. We'll see how that takes off. Now we will move on to our public hearings. First one, item 8A. It's an introduction and first reading of ordinance number 401-11, amending sections of our town municipal code. May we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council. Before you tonight, we revisit the issue of civil fines, penalties, infractions, misdemeanors, and administrative citations. This has been a collaborative effort working with the town manager, the town clerk, and our office as town attorney, and also taking into significant consideration the comments that were provided by the town council at the previous time that this issue was visited. Tonight, what we hope to do is summarize for you the three areas that are under consideration: administrative citations, criminal infractions, and misdemeanors, and also what is being presented to you for consideration, but also to walk through the code enforcement process, which I think will be very helpful and instructive as far as what are the various steps and how do these elements of the law interrelate with each other. At the very outset, I think it is important to note that probably the most important element of this presentation and these proposed changes is the fact that, and it appears in the staff report in page 2, which and it bears repeating, that the primary objective when dealing with municipal code enforcement is compliance and not punishment. So the goal of all of this is to try and seek compliance with the municipal code, with any particular state laws that are affected, and to seek from the Yountville residents or the Yountville businesses compliance with the rules and regulations that govern all. Let me first start with administrative citations. An administrative citation is probably the simplest way of trying to define that as merely a civil penalty, a civil ticket, if you will, that carries with it some penalty component if the violation is ignored or not corrected. So that can be anywhere from no fee or penalty up to a $50 administrative fee or penalty if the administrative citation is addressed and corrected at its earliest stages, or it can go as more significant as multiple violations, which can start at $550 all the way up to a third citation in a 3-year period that may lead up to a $1,000 penalty. Again, it carries with it no criminal imposition or jail time, but as I stated earlier, if these matters are corrected timely, there is no penalty, or at the very minimum, a $50 administrative fee. Criminal infractions are tickets, traffic tickets, others, criminal citations. Those have to be issued by a law enforcement officer. Infractions may be punished by either $100 for first violation, $200 for second violation, and $500 for each additional violation. These are standards that are established by the state law. Also part of this process this evening is a request to approve an update to the penalty schedule for traffic tickets, and I'll address that briefly, but the criminal infraction is primarily in the area of traffic tickets and other matters that are deemed infractions either by the municipal code or as if you adopt the ordinance tonight that are determined to be infractions by either the code enforcement officer, the town attorney, or the town manager. A misdemeanor is obviously a more significant penalty. That is a crime under California law and under our municipal code. They are involved when there are serious offenses of the municipal code or state law that are violated. This carries with it the possible penalty of $1,000 or imprisonment in county jail. But as I stated earlier, this is a course of last resort, and only when it is the most serious of local or state law offenses. Now, if I can, great. Okay, let's go through the flow chart first. It's in your agenda report, but I think it's also important for the public to recognize that we are talking multiple steps before we get to anything that may lead to significant fines or penalties. The first step is where a violation is reported to the code enforcement officer. The code enforcement officer recognizes that there is a violation of local ordinances or state law. That will lead to a step 2, which is in further investigation of the alleged code violation. There has to be some demonstration of evidence to support and substantiate the alleged violation before a notice is first sent. So that's step 3. And if a violation is deemed to exist, the code enforcement officer would send a first notice of violation. Once again, if this is sent, it is important to note that there is no fee or no penalty imposed by placing the property owner, the business owner, on notice of a violation. Hopefully that catches someone's attention and they come in and start to discuss this matter with the town. But if there is no compliance, or if there is or a lack of recognition or response to the first notice, the code enforcement officer would send off a second notice. And once again, this does not carry with it any penalty or fee. So there is an effort, once again, to try and work with the resident or the business owner to seek compliance. Step 5 is that if that second notice achieves its intended result, then town staff would meet with the property owner or business owner at a show cause hearing to discuss the code violation and set up reasonable timelines in which to bring that property or that situation into compliance. Once again, if we have step 5, there is still no penalty or no fee, and the town is doing everything reasonable to try and work with the property owner or the business owner to ensure that there is compliance and not punishment. If the property owner or business owner does not comply with the deadline as mutually agreed upon, then that goes to a step 6. And this is the first time where any type of fee is attached. Then the code enforcement officer can issue a first administrative citation if the property owner does not comply with the show cause hearing deadline, and with that is a $50 fee attached. But if it is abated in a timely fashion, the town has the ability to abate or waive that $50 fee. From step 6, we go to, it's noticed as step 6 again, but it's actually step 7, which is if the first administrative citation does not catch the attention of the property owner or business owner, a second citation is issued, or if they have failed to comply with the first administrative citation deadline. We go on again to a third and final administrative citation if the property owner fails to comply with the second administrative citation deadline. And again, the $50 fee is attached, not a new one, but the same $50 fee, but it may be abated if the property owner or business owner complies. So as the town council can see, there is a number of steps that we walk down, that we work with the property owner and the business owner to try and seek compliance and not punishment. But when that fails, when all measures in attempt to try and seek that compliance have been exhausted, then the town may file either a misdemeanor complaint or cite the property owner or business owner for an infraction. Or additionally, there may be other civil remedies such as a nuisance abatement process through the civil courts. That's the step-by-step approach that the town would be taking in carrying out its code enforcement and other violations of municipal code. What is also before you this evening is two items of action. One is consideration of an ordinance amending the existing town municipal code, and we took into consideration some of the concerns expressed at the last meeting about the possibility of it appearing too heavy-handed by turning all code violations as a misdemeanor unless it's specifically designated as an infraction. So in order to address that concern, in the proposed language before you is that it would be an infraction if it's designated. If it's not designated, it would be a misdemeanor, but it may also be deemed to be an infraction as at the discretion of the town manager, town attorney, or town prosecutor in the interest of justice. So there is every effort being made to try and work with the involved individuals who are possibly or being alleged to have violated the town codes. The second action item before you this evening is the resolution, and this is really to address the issue of traffic citations and parking citations. As stated in the agenda report and the resolution, the traffic fines and vehicle penalties have not been updated for 7 years. We have received notice from the County Sheriff's Department that they are requesting that our citation and our traffic penalties be in line and consistent with those found throughout the county. So also for your consideration this evening is the resolution that would approve the adoption of the vehicle and traffic civil fines and penalties schedule and would bring that into compliance with current citation costs. That concludes staff report. If there are any questions, we stand ready to address those questions.
So it's your recommendation we have both of those items discussed together?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, great. Questions about the staff report from council before we open up to the public? Any questions? Vice Mayor.
In the staff report, thank you because you reacted to questions by the council and I believe the public. Page 4 and 5 go through a sampling of a lot of the major issues or ordinances in town and the municipal code and what the type of charge would be, how that would play out. How does two that I was kind of thinking about had to do with one is a use permit. I don't know if that falls under the general provisions. If you could address use permits, and if you could also address zoning laws. If somebody is in violation of zoning, if you had somebody who's renting out commercial space for residential or a residential space zoned area for commercial purposes, could you address that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council. Both of these would fall into the area of our code violations, our zoning code violations. That would fall under the administrative citation ordinance. So it would take these variety of steps to get to that ultimate either resolution or criminal or civil action. If a person is operating a business without the appropriate use permit, That would be a violation of the municipal code. That could result, or would result, with this multiple step process. And if that still didn't obtain compliance, same way with the zoning code, that could lead either to either an administrative citation, an infraction, a misdemeanor, or even, depending on the nature of the violation, a possible civil abatement, nuisance abatement process.
With the case of a conditional use permit, there's also another alternative available to the town depending on the follow-through, which would include consideration of a revocation of conditional use permit hearing by the town council. So those would be addressed, and again, the process of trying to educate, advise, works the same. The path depends a little bit on how the parties respond.
And if I may follow up, and that's absolutely correct, the town manager hits upon a point that if it's an existing conditional use permit that has been granted, the remedy there is revocation or modification or suspension. If a person is operating without a use permit when they are required to have a use permit, then it goes to this abatement process.
Thank you.
The one question I have, and I believe it was brought up at our last conversation, has to do with identifying the code enforcement officer that's listed here. There was concern that that would be additional staff. If you could just clarify how this process is going to be handled within current town staff.
You know, we have a lot of hats that get worn, and certainly we would love to have additional staff. But when it comes down to it, the town manager serves as the code enforcement officer, and there may be a case where planning staff, if that's the appropriate place where it starts. But in most cases, no, we're not talking additional staff. Existing staff will be carrying out the functions, just like if you look in the definition under town manager in this particular community, I also serve as the budget officer, the personnel officer, and the a few other titles that are thrown in there that I forget right now. So, I mean, it's not an additional staff. What I do think it reflects is a conversation that the council and the community have been having, which is we need to have teeth so that when there is a problem, we want it to be dealt with, because unfortunately not everybody is an adult and follows the rules. And when they do, there needs to be consequences. I have to say we're very fortunate that this community, for the most part, when people are made aware, they may not always like it, but for the most part, we have a very successful track record of working to a successful resolution. But when we don't, you know, and you've seen in the staff report, there's a whole range of things, and that's why it's hard to say, well, what's one thing? I mean, an illegal A-frame sign does not warrant the same response as somebody that chops down a heritage tree in the middle of the night. But on a simple application of how it applies in the ordinance, it may look that way. So those are some of the realities that we are working on in this community, and I think the council's feedback and the community's recommendation that we put together a response that's appropriate for this community hopefully are conveyed, and you also look at the dollar amounts. We're trying to make sure that it's enough to get somebody's attention, but not egregious. And again, in most cases, people can avoid the cost by simply working to resolve, and the town will, as part of our general administrative budget, absorb those costs. Only when they go further into that process does the administrative cost recovery start coming into play.
Thank you. And as is our usual course of action, I would will now open the public comment portion of this public hearing and encourage any members of the public that are here tonight that would like to address this item. Please feel free to step forward at this time. Please. And Graham, could you maybe help lower that?
This one or this one? This one?
It's out.
I can.
Is that,
Okay.
That's good, I think.
Can you hear me?
We had all of our tall people speak in succession earlier, I think.
Great, that's fine. My name is Carla Reif, YFF, 2 F's and 2 Franks, 11 Forester Lane. I wasn't here for the last meeting and I hadn't seen the staff report, so I just had a couple of questions. I wondered what generated this? What was the genesis of this? Have you had lots of enforcement problems in this town? Have we had lots of criminal things or parking problems that I'm not aware of? is this necessary, or are there complaints? Has business been complaining about this? Have neighborhoods been complaining? Have enforcement staff, the sheriff's office, been complaining that there's nothing that you can do, or that there's problems in Yountville that can't be solved the way that they're on the books right now? I don't know the history of that, and I would be interested in that. And how many violations of things do you have? It seems to me I've never seen a violation of anything in this town, but I live in a very isolated area. And then my the second item I wanted to address was that when I saw that, and all I got was this one notice, was that it would be automatically adjusted. The town's V&T fine schedule shall not may, shall be automatically adjusted consistent with any future amendments to the county schedule as may be adopted by the County of the Napa Board of Supervisors from time to time. I think shall is a strong word, and I think that any time one body automatically adjusts what it's doing, they'll automatically happen when some other body makes that. I just don't think that that's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to tie what goes on here to something that's decided in Napa. You lose control, and I think it's probably better if it does become an issue for you to address it on your own. Those are my comments.
Great, thank you.
Any questions?
We will address your questions once we get all the questions from the public, and then staff will be happy to respond. Any other members of the public like to speak? Please.
Felix Flynn, 6712 Washington Street. Two items of note. Just a few minutes ago, the town attorney offered the term designation as my understanding in listening was that it would be a way of discriminating in how to levy or to administer a violation, whether it's a citation, an infraction, or a misdemeanor. I need a little more clarity on what designation is, and what, and more specific, well, there's plenty of examples, but I can read the examples. Going on to page 6, under the strategic plan goal, briefly explain relationship to strategic plan goal and objective. Proposed language provide for greater consequences or teeth for violators as requested by town council. I go along with what the citizen who just spoke before me said. And I just want to go on the record for saying I certainly don't need any more encouragement or teeth or anything like that. I take my ownership in this town as a very serious thing, and my point of view is to leave it better than when I came here. So, all right, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. And we will again address that one question you had. Billy, anything? Okay, so it appears that those are our public comments and questions, so I'll close the public hearing with the answers as staff can provide them.
I'll do my best. And the first answer is, part of my job is to review organizational effectiveness, our structures, ordinance, to ensure that they're current with either the needs of the community or where we're at. While I wouldn't say that we have a large code enforcement process, we have had a number of code enforcement situations. Council's been briefed on a number of those. We've had some CUP monitoring issues. We've had very public action about a inappropriate use of a property as a vacation rental. We've had a situation where we had to initiate a nuisance abatement process on property that was creating a negative health situation due to the fact that there were squatters and squalor, rats, and emanating from the site. So while many of our community may not see in their immediate neighborhood, there are some incidents that caused us to take a look at our process. One of the most critical ones that we looked at was when there was a town-owned tree cut down under the prior system that was in place. The maximum penalty was a slap on the wrist and a $100 fine. And the council told us that's not acceptable. The community said that's not acceptable, because basically that potentially creates the opportunity for people to tell us one thing, go out and do another thing. So that's what led to the review. And I also want to point out that this is really a very minor clarification. The fine schedules are set by state law. I mean, we are talking about identifying a $550, $750, and a $1,000 fine, consistent with what we did previously with our social host ordinance. With regards to the shall match the county schedule, that's limited to one provision only, and that is the vehicle code section where we contract and utilize the Napa County Sheriff's Department. I also want to point out that in all that fine revenue, the town receives less than $5,000 a year. Most all of the fine revenue goes to the County of Napa and the California court system. That is where most of that revenue. So the intent behind that particular language already exists in the current municipal code. What we have is a situation where, for a variety of factors, that information and coordination between the county and the town has not occurred in 7 years, and we're not current. The language about keeping current with the county language exists in our current municipal code, so there's no change. With regard to...
Actually, Steve, before you move on to the next topic, correct me if I'm wrong, because we talked about that point in our last discussion about the potential voiding of citations given by sheriff's deputies if there was an inconsistency in the two languages, both locally and at the county level. Is that accurate? Or if the fine structure was different?
Our fine structure has not been updated in 7 years to match the county. So we had an inconsistency, and our fine schedule was not the same as what the county is. So we also had the situation where they could have been writing a ticket using the inappropriate fine schedule. So that's what we talked about, and this would bring us consistent with that. And to some degree, we're also contractually obligated to keep these things on that current schedule. Mr. Flynn asked a concept and said that he was confused about designation. And I think the best way to explain that is the attorney laid out a very thoughtful process that the town used. And in that, there is written communications that will be provided to a potential situation where a party is put on notice, and the written document from the town will outline the expectation and the course of action, in other words, the designation, if you will, of which route we're going. So that's not preordained until the facts of the case and how the parties respond, and that's just simply the way that one is. But the property owner or the potential person that is subject to an action will clearly know the course, because it will be written in a very clear format in the administrative matter that the town sends that party. I believe that answers the questions that were posed by the public.
It does, to my recollection also. So what I will do, following our public comment portion, is return the discussion to council and ask for comments and discussion. Councilmember Mueller, would you like to begin, please?
I'd just like to thank town manager and our town attorney and staff who brought this revised document back. And I do think that it's important that all of our citizens really understand that all we're doing is really clarifying the municipal code in terms of the penalties that are already there. We are not adding new things to the municipal code. We already kind of did that last year. We're just clarifying it. So I think it is important because people will know what's going to happen or what's not going to happen. So I just commend the staff and the attorney and the town manager for really going through our municipal code and making sure that we're up to date with current practices in other cities and towns. So I think this is important that we do this, and it has my full support.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall?
Yes, my pet gnat has decided to visit. First of all, I also want to commend the town attorney and town manager and the staff. This was a very complicated and unclear discussion in the last meeting, and I think that what you came back with, and I would first of all focus on the flow chart and how that actually walks through what the remedy might be for an individual who was ever found to be outside of the ordinance or outside of the code, and that certainly is helpful. I think boxes and arrows with a little depiction of what the expectation is, and frankly, where we indicate that there wouldn't be a penalty for quite some time down the path. If someone isn't aware that something is coming, they would be either foolish or incapable of following the simple blue box and red lines. And I would just encourage them to, to obviously work with the town, because I don't think our intent here, and it's obvious our intent here, is not to generate income from this activity and these changes. This is not going to be an income generating line that you'll see in the budget where we're going after people for the town's benefit. Again, I think that's really important to identify. It will be, and it is, I believe, an important measure for us to make and to undertake here, because it does give the town teeth. There aren't today the levels of, at least the threat of certain corrective action and monetary compensation back to the town for things or activities that really should be more strongly considered. And the town manager suggested and mentioned a situation where a heritage tree was cut down, and really the only infraction or penalty that someone could be given was a slap on the hand. I don't think that's something that we would all encourage here, but certainly there's nothing to discourage that type of activity. I would like to sort of finalize by saying these laws and the fee schedules, they're really all defined either by the state and or, as the town manager mentioned, by the Napa County Police Department, which we have a relationship with. And so all we're doing with the vehicle fees and fines are basically following and being consistent with what's already being done in the other areas that they serve. I believe all the other areas in Napa County, with the exception of the city of Napa. So it's just being consistent with what's already being provided throughout the community here in Napa County. Those are my only comments. I would also, again, support this as a more clear explanation, and again, giving the town really the ability to have a little more control and force with regards to getting people to comply with the ordinances and the codes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Chilton.
I won't repeat all the thanks. However, I will add that I think that the changes in the report from the last meeting we had are illuminating and important. I think looking at that flow chart that's on the screen right now, I counted, even in a situation that would come up, that a resident would be notified in writing 5 different times plus a hearing before you ever get to a situation of a misdemeanor. And I would say that if you get 5 notices plus a hearing and you don't get it, then I think that is incumbent upon you and not the town to realize that there's a serious problem. So I certainly support this. I share essentially all of the comments of the previous council members.
Thank you. And I concur with all, virtually all the comments that have been made as well. One of the, I'll make a response a little bit to one of the comments that we heard from the public about do we have infractions going on here in town? And there's no question there are. They're not very public in some cases. They're not headline grabbers, which is a good thing. We don't want that. We're trying to make sure it never gets to that level. But we do have folks either out of a lack of awareness or a lack of concern for their neighbors in their community that do violate the ordinances. So we have been put in a position where we just need to be able to react if that is the appropriate response. So I can support these. I will reiterate, significantly clearer and better defined for the council, I believe, as well as the public. So I appreciate the additional effort the staff made. And that's exactly what this process is about. Is as we're crafting this language, the intent is to make it very clear to the entire community what rules we are following. So my appreciation on that as well. So do we need 2 separate actions on these 2 items, one for the introduction and first reading and then another vote for the adoption?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And do these need to be roll call votes?
No.
Okay, so with that, I expect that there would be a motion to be had on the first action, which is introduction and first reading of the ordinance number 401-11.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Town of Yountville ordinance number 401-11, an ordinance of the Town of Yountville amending sections 1.20.010 of the Town of Yountville Municipal Code.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2996-11, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Yountville adopting a fine and administrative fee and penalty schedule pursuant to section 8.05.040 of the Yountville Municipal Code.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Don't really need a roll call vote when it's unanimous. That works. Thank you very much, and again, thanks to staff for that report. We'll move on to our next public hearing, which is considering adoption of resolution related to our citizens' public safety COPS program funding. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. This item is asking you to approve our COPS spending plan. And as you know, historically, the town utilizes the $100,000 grant for supplemental law enforcement services, which are included as part of our contract with the sheriff. Our COPS program, we did not include this revenue in our originally adopted budget because the state had not secured funding for the COPS grant. Now that funding is secured, we were notified that we are scheduled to get our $100,000, so that is good news. And so we are also asking you to approve a budget adjustment to recognize the revenue. And with that, if you have any questions.
That's probably the shortest staff report you're going to give in some time, isn't it?
Good.
And a positive one.
Yes.
Are there any questions about that? There shouldn't be. There are, of course.
I only have one
Councilmember Hall.
question. I'm sorry, I need to understand. So I do understand now. I couldn't really get that from the staff report. So the money has been put aside. It's now been
Yes.
allocated. We're
comes-
eligible for $100,000.
We're eligible for $100,000. The funds come from the state through the county.
Right.
And once we approve this and we submit our approved plan, it goes through the county process. This is all dictated by government code. And then as they get their funding, they'll allocate us our funding, usually quarterly.
And since we didn't budget the revenue, but we did budget the expense, we now will have, all things being equal, $100,000.
An extra $100,000 in revenue.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
We won't call it extra. We will call it additional $100,000.
Additional.
Yes. Any other questions, Vice Mayor?
My only question has to do with when the state acknowledges it made a fake budget for this year on revenue projections in January, which is going to. This won't be affected? Is that, I mean, we're confident in that?
To my knowledge, this will not be affected. These funds have been committed.
Okay. Thank you.
And to follow up on that question, regardless of whether the money actually gets sent to us, we still have to submit for it.
Absolutely.
And this is part of that process that we have been going through every year.
Yes.
And every year we wonder if the money is actually going to show up.
Right.
And fortunately, so far.
To the Vice Mayor's concern, we waited until we absolutely had direction from the state, and the state has shown the allocation. I share the Vice Mayor's concern that we still don't know what may come down from the state, and how that affects us, we'll continue to monitor and watch. We're fortunate compared to some of our neighboring jurisdictions that our reliance on some of the state funding programs is very nominal. We're also fortunate that in most cases our budget, if there was something that we identified and knew was in question, we've not included it. I will point out that the biggest thing in question at the state level remains redevelopment agency funding, and that's not a factor in the town of Yountville. So the bulk of our revenue stream appears to be in substantially good shape. However, I don't trust the end results out of Sacramento when they get put, and if there ends up being some type of property tax shift or a reorganization of something, we need to be prepared for that. But I do think that At this point in time, we're doing two things that I think are correct. We are going to allocate the revenue based on the notice. We've already booked the expenditure. I'd like for people to introduce Cal. That is our expenditure plan. Our expenditure plan is, our normal contract for services with Napa County Sheriff's Department. We still, in spite of the $100,000, have an expenditure of $735,000 for a total budget this year of $835,000.
Thank you. And with that, I will open the public hearing formally on this item and encourage anyone that would like to speak on this, either the living, breathing recipient of said potential state funding or any other member of the public, if you'd like to comment on this item. No? With seeing no action on that, I will close the public hearing and return this conversation to council. Any comments by council or any action by council?
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2997-11, approving the fiscal year 2011-12 Citizens Option for Public Safety COPS Program Spending Plan and Budget Adjustment number 2011-12-04.
Second.
Do we need a roll call on this for money?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, not necessary anyway. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we will keep our fingers crossed that the money actually comes in. We'll move on now to item 9, administrative and regular items. Veterans and Vineyard Park Pathway Project. Staff report, please.
Mayor Dunbar, Council. I have a presentation tonight on our continuing discussion about infrastructure in town. As you know, there's park paths in the Vandeleur Park and Forester Park that are the buff-colored concrete. The other parks have usually asphalt, and that's what we'll be talking about tonight. I do appreciate the council approving the award of the sidewalk contract, because those parks, paths, and sidewalks are two areas where the town has quite a bit of liability in terms of tripping and falling claims that are filed against the town. So what we're trying to do is address those and minimize the potential liability. So we do have an item in the budget. It's our park path reconstruction and replacement program, and there's about $47,000 in that budget this year. So the concrete pavers in Veterans Park have been uplifting, settling. There's been gophers, there's been saturated soils. So those have been a continuous maintenance problem, and so what we like to do is remove and replace those with the concrete. The asphalt paths in both Veterans Memorial Park and Vineyard Park have been rapidly deteriorating because of the sun and the moisture. As we talked about the last council meeting, asphalt concrete just degrades very quickly with the rain and the sun. And in the parks, we also have irrigation. So at Veterans Memorial Park, what we did is we put out a request for proposal with a base bid to just do what we thought was going to be within the budget, and it is. And then two alternatives for doing different parts of the paths in the park. I'll show you a picture next of those. Also some additional grading for some site drainage. We have some low spots with ponding on the path. And then some upgrading of the path where it connects with the ADA ramp on Washington Street to come into compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. So I know we have the new cameras, but this is in your packet. It may be hard for people to see, but it's a little bit better. So this is a plan that went out with the RFP. The first phase is the blue, and this is the area in the park that has the pavers, and I'll have a picture of that as well. So that's the base bid. We asked contractors, we got 8 bids, I believe, it's just in your packet, to bid on that, and asked, okay, well, for this many square foot of concrete, what would you charge us per square foot? The other area, the second phase, was the alternate to the base bid, which is the yellow area, and this is up near the plaza at the north end of the park. Here's Washington Street and Madison. And so that would be replaced as an alternate bid item. So if the town council chooses, we could award the base bid and the alternate bid. The third area, which is the second alternate, is the green, which is around the bocce courts. And this is an asphalt concrete pavement, which I'll show you as well. The town public works crews have already removed this area in sort of a pinkish orange, which has been removed, and there's now grass growing there, so it's opened up make a larger grass area. There's also an area shown in red here that we remove but not replace in that alignment. We're going to straighten the path a bit. And then the plaza, which has pavers, is in pretty good shape, and we're just going to leave that the way it is for now. It may be a future improvement project. The thing to point out is all these paths will be 6 feet. Some are wider, some are narrower, and we just want to be consistent with the concrete. So this is one of the pavers at Veterans Memorial Park, and you can see it's settling here on the edge where it has the irrigation and gophers. There's also areas where the pavers have settled. It just has sand underneath it, so if there's any sort of settlement with the soil underneath, this is irrigated, so it has a lot of moisture. So this is from the plaza going out towards Washington Street. You can see the Hotel Yountville in the back. And this is asphalt concrete, and it's gets wet, and the town tried to slurry seal it here, and it's just really rough, and it's gray, it's oxidizing, it's going to start cracking here pretty quick. So we thought, since we're doing part of the paths, let's look at this one as well. So that's this first alternative bid. This is down near the bocce courts and the picnic area, and here you can see the cracks where the tree roots are starting to lift up the paths, which is also what's happened with a lot of sidewalks in town. That's why we're replacing those. So this would be the second alternative bid item to replace this section of path that goes all around the bocce courts. Over at Vineyard Park, we're looking at relocating the pathway to the west, which would be along the landscaping along Oak Circle, that provide more grass area in the middle of the park. Also increasing, again, public safety for removing the depression and cracks in the pathways, and then improve the sidewalk leading to the park from Columbard. So here's see a little better. But as you're looking, the tennis courts are down here, the south end, and then Holly is up at the north. The vineyards are over on the right, and Oak Circle's here. So the park path that goes right through the middle of the park, what we want to do is remove that and move to what's green here is to move the path with the new concrete colored path along Oak Circle. And the areas in blue would be remove and replace. So this is the path that goes past this basketball court, picnic area to the restroom and the tennis courts. And also the town is in our right-of-way is the path along Oak Circle from Columbard. So I want to replace that as well. And again, these would be 6-foot colored concrete. So this is the path going from Columbard to the park. So this is looking west. And you can see where the pavement is cracking and uplifting. This is looking from near the park restrooms, picnic area here, the basketball courts in Oak Circle here. And you can see that the edges of these paths are just starting to break off and deteriorate. This is a path as you go north from the area by the picnic tables. It just goes right through the middle of the park. We have grass on each side. It gets irrigated with the sprinklers. It gets hit by the sun. And so what we want to do is move the path over here next to landscaping, and then we'd reduce some grass and the irrigation area there, and also be a better route to the north. So this is looking to the south from Holly, and so what will happen is removing this path, and then realigning the path to the right in this picture, and then along Oak Circle, along the landscaping. And then there should be a little remove and replacement of the path going from Oak Circle out to the existing path. And this is where it connects to Holly, and just an example of where it's going to go widen to 6 feet. So this was, Mid-Valley was a low bidder. Their total bid was $81,000. The second low bidder was, I believe, $150,000. Well, there's a $50,000 difference, so it was $132,000. So it's quite a spread in your staff report. It has the bid results. So we feel like we're getting a good, thank you, good prices. Is about $6.50 for the base bid, $7.50 for the alternative bids, and then $7.90 for the third alternative in Vineyard Park. And these are really good prices because on the sidewalk project it's been about $10 a square foot. So we feel like we're getting really good prices on these bids. So the base bid and the first alternative would stay within the budget. If you do want to award the second alternative, third alternative, we need a budget adjustment, and that is part of the resolution before you tonight. So some things to consider. By constructing all phases at one time, we reduce the overall cost to the capital improvement program. We've done is spread these projects are all together over 3 years. We want to do is just put it into one bid. We got a good bid on these project and the request for proposal. We reduce our risk management now instead of later, so reduce our potential liability with trip and falls claims. We would have new paths in Vineyard Park because you also awarded the contract for the tennis court resurfacing, so that would be 2 upgrades in the park and hopefully attract more users to use the tennis courts and the facilities. So recommendation for you tonight is to reduce the construction impacts by doing all the projects at once instead of spreading it over 3 years. Reduce the overall costs of the path projects by saving on administrative costs. Those are described in your staff report, but all the paperwork and process that staff has to go through and our consultants. And so we wanted to construct the base bid and all 3 alternatives at one time. And before you tonight is a recommendation to approve a budget adjustment for the additional funding, which would be a total amount of $102,520. So with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that report. Questions by council? Councilmember Moeller?
I think I heard you say it's out in Vineyard Park where you're going to move the sidewalk. You're not going to change the landscaping by the street.
Correct.
Landscaping and then new sidewalk. Is that right?
Correct. So
Okay.
here at the, this is a better picture.
Yeah, that one.
So the landscaping here on the left is along Oak Circle, and so the path would just go right along the edge there of the
Where the
landscaping.
dirt is now.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Hall, any questions of staff about the report?
Yeah, Graham, just want to make sure I clarify. So I'm looking at attachment 4, which is the capital improvement project, and I see where you get the 47,250. We'll ignore the 309. My question is, if I look at this and I make an assumption that we're going to continue to do these other park path improvements in the future periods, and I know they're not necessarily designated or not, they don't have comments for which parks they're for, which should be irrelevant. The question I have is, we're potentially looking at a proposal of, I'm sorry, how much did you say an increase was over the current existing 47,250? I'm not.
So the budget adjustment in the staff report is
I'm sorry, is it 55,270?
Correct.
Okay.
$55,000 would be a budget adjustment from the capital project reserve balance, and then, which is essentially, with the last council meeting, there was, I believe, $300,000 put into the capital projects fund, so this would be some of that coming back out.
So in a sense, let me just make sure I understand. In a sense, when we initially scoped out the Vineyard and the Veterans Park, is it your expectation that 47,250 was going to cover, but now we've done a little more homework and we're getting a better sense of it, or do we look forward in the future and say we're going to do this in phases anyways and we're not going to incur this all at one time, i.e. these were planned in future years where you've budgeted them in the future years, but they're now not going to come to fruition? Does my question make sense?
Yeah, what we had planned to do, as you can see here, is the town has consistently spent 20, 25,000, 30,000 maybe a year on park paths, and so we were looking at one area of Veterans Memorial Park, and that was going to be our project for the year. But we talked to the town manager and said, well, why don't we look and see, it's a good bidding environment, contractors are hungry for work, what if we do 3 phases, try and knock out 3 years worth of park paths work. So there was $47,000 in there because there was money left over from the previous fiscal year, which we rolled over, and what we're asking for is to pull 2 years of funding from future years into this current year.
That's my question.
I also want to clarify, I think this is a good question, but I also want to point out that the order and magnitude of the anticipated replacement has grown. And these were numbers based on a prior historical pattern and did not reflect some of the changes in a field condition. And we've talked occasionally to you about how sometimes things change. We've been put on notice by several residents, including some folks from the Veterans Home, that don't like the path approach, to the from the Vineyard Park in, that it's uncomfortable for them for walking. And what you saw in those pictures, and I know many of you are out, this last year we have seen a rapid degradation in the overall quality. For example, the paving path was not the area that Public Works really had anticipated replacing. They had anticipated in this year's replacement that they would do the scarred asphalt section connecting to it, but in reality, the failing paver path became our #1 priority because it really exposed ourselves, especially, again, knowing the nuances of our community with a senior community, a lot of people out walking and using these. we were creating potential trip and fall hazards, which would expose the town to some potential mitigation cost and liability. So really what we're doing is accelerating some of the remainder of the park path improvements, basically improving. Concrete is more expensive than asphalt, but we will have something that's going to have a longer life cycle. And we're also learning that a $35,000 a year project has a high administrative cost burden because we have to go through the RFP, the bidding process, developing the specs. And while that may seem simple to you all up here, it takes a fair amount of Graham and public work, the town clerks. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and if we're able to get 3 years' worth of work with one budget adjustment, we think it's a prudent course to recommend to you, especially given the fact that our fund balance supports this, and we know that these are two heavily utilized parks.
Thank you for the clarification. Do you have any other questions?
No, that was the nature of my question. We're basically accelerating the
Correct.
utilization of those funds. That was my question.
Any other questions by council of the report? No, thank you. Any comments from the public? Please, now would be the time.
Hi. Given Steve's very detailed explanation of the fiscal necessity of accelerating the process of bidding and of administration and so on, I'm grateful because that's a perspective as a citizen I just don't get. However, as a citizen and as a longtime property owner in Yountville, something I'm very concerned about is the amenity of the public paths and such to all of us. When I see something like this, it does make a strong impression on me of how the tiles are just popping right up out of the ground. Gives me many thoughts. Who did the job? What sort of warranty was involved and things like that? And let's not, pardon the pun, go down that path again. However, at the same time, knowing that one of the true amenities, common amenities, and joys of living and just being in Yountville are the public parks. I remember bringing my children there when they were very young and how much enjoyment we got from them on a daily basis. What I would hope that's taken in consideration is maybe if there's some way to, and again, I can't pretend to understand the nuances of how these things are engineered or designed or constructed, but is to maybe fashion it in such a way that not all of the parks are tied up at once, or not all of the access to the parks are tied up at once, or something like that. I realize we're getting into a slower time of the year, being a tourist economy here, but we still, after all, we still have our own citizens to serve, and that's a big part of the enjoyment of the quality of life here in Yountville. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your question, and I'll ask if staff can maybe address, is it too early in the process to have any idea what a construction schedule might look like, or because you are combining projects with this recommendation, what can you anticipate the kind of impact on the use and access of the parks?
Well, it's interesting that usually we do a project like this during the summer, and that's when the parks are used the most. We have 20 working days in the project, so we anticipate the contractor would work at one park, finish that work, and then go to the other park. Sometimes they try to combine concrete pours and stuff together, but I think with the amount of time we can keep them confined to one park at a time. We're going to have to work around the weather, so we'll look at windows of time, and we'll probably suspend the contract at times when we have a long period of rainfall. So we'll be working probably through the winter. It won't be 20 straight days, 4 weeks, but we'll probably have to spread it out. But the parks aren't used as much during the winter as they are in the summer, so I think this may be a benefit to the town to actually do this work at this time of year.
So we're looking at a cumulative 3 weeks with maybe additional rain delays, and that'll have to be factored in as
it's going to depend on the weather
functional.
a lot. Right.
Okay, thank you. With that as our public comment on this item, I bring it back for council discussion. Any initial comments or comments? Councilmember Mueller.
Well, to me, this falls under my category of safety, which is probably the single most important category I think that we have in town. So I think this is really important to do, especially for preventing any trips and falls. And as I think staff pointed out, we have a lot of economy of scale here and taking advantage of our slow economy. So it just seems financially, fiscally prudent to do that. I also think that by how you're going to change and are changing some of these sidewalks, that we might also be reducing the amount of water that we add to the parks, because now you have to water two sides, it seems like, and now you can just maybe water one. I don't know, you maybe have already thought of that, but that's what it appears to me. Also, I really like the idea of widening the paths, because especially for ADA compliance, I don't really even know what the regulation is there, but I see some people in their wheelchairs having to go in the street because some of our paths are pretty narrow. When the sides start falling down, they're kind of wobbling around. They can't go straight. So I think this is solving perhaps some issues in terms of water use and to help the number of people who have wheelchairs that are going around too. So I think it's a great idea, and I'd be in support of accelerating and expanding what we're doing in both the parks.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. First of all, I couldn't agree more with the public and their feeling about the parks. We need to maintain them. Obviously, they're for the enjoyment of the residents as well as the visitors to our town. But certainly, I enjoy them, and all these parks. The more we make investments in these assets, I think the more utilized they will be. So I could certainly support that. I would also then echo what Councilmember Moeller indicated, that widening the paths for ADA is certainly critical, but also for twin strollers. And so I think that that would be certainly supported on my part. But no, I'm in support of it. And I just did want to make sure that we acknowledge that we are accelerating the payment or monies associated with the park path replacement, and that I would expect in next year's CIP that those numbers would modify somewhat based on the fact that we're bringing the monies into the current period. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Chilton.
I'll pretty much agree with everything I heard. I recall a year or two ago we did the same thing with the sidewalks around Hurley's and Pacific Blues, and combined several projects at once to take advantage of economies of scale, and I think that's why we should do this. And I do want to compliment staff, particularly, you look at Veterans Park too. I think it's great that you're not only fixing the problem, but you're actually going to make the park better. And I really do think that the change of the path at Vineyard Park is a big improvement, so I think that's going to be positive. So I certainly support doing all of the alternatives in the package that's been recommended.
Thank you. And I did want to just acknowledge a couple points that have already been made. One that Councilmember Hall brought up, which is this already was kind of on the schedule and on the books, and that we do have the ability financially to act now with the savings coming in years 2 and 3, and seeing the benefit in year 1. And I think it's also important to acknowledge what staff brought up, which is this is really a reaction of seeing what's happening in real time in the field conditions and the deterioration of those conditions. I know personally, having had conversations, and I suspect other members of the council have had conversations with our residents who have fallen or have been concerned about falling, and we need to act now as a public safety issue. This isn't a cosmetic decision, and this isn't just to enhance the beauty of the parks, though I think there will be that added benefit. This really is paramount to public safety in response to conditions that warrant that. So I can support, we do have the balance of funds that we can tap into. That's the whole point of having such a balance, is to be able to react when conditions warrant it. So I too can support accepting the recommendation of the entire bid package as presented. So with that, is there a motion for such action?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2998-11, awarding bid to and approving construction contract with Mid-Valley Construction of Vacaville for the construction of the Veterans Park and Vineyard Park Pathways Project, PK-4011, in the amount of $81,700. Approving budget adjustment number 2011-12-05, increasing appropriations for the PK-4011 project budget in the Capital Improvements Fund by $55,270 for a new project budget of $102,520, and authorizing the town manager to sign construction contract change orders and amendments up to the budget amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you very much. And there'll be certainly plenty of notices on the sites as well as around town to let people know when those parks are going to be impacted. Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to item 10, staff informational reports. Did you want to comment on the Bouchon Bakery renovation update, or?
I was going to give you a verbal update.
Great, thank you.
This is a brief report to inform the council. A recent discussion staff has had with the Bouchon management regarding the bakery. They have viewed this recent unscheduled construction of theirs as an opportunity to make some changes in the circulation of the retail area. And what they have proposed is to add 2 doors. They're going to, as you know now, the entry door is at the corner and it's at an angle, and they're going to square off that corner. And if you're familiar with the interior where the coffee station is now against the wall against Washington, in that approximate location would be a new entry door, and the exit door would be now pointed towards Bouchon on the north side of the now squared off north side. They are, I believe, also going to add 2 cashiers to increase the flow through there. And that's what they propose. The preliminary discussions we've had with them indicated they are maintaining consistent design elements with the existing building and materials. So it's really a reordering of the building elements, and we were intending to process this administratively as a 10-day notice of pending action. Thought maybe they may have the plans in by now and that notice would be out there, and wanted to highlight that for you. Right now that has not been issued. They're still working on the plans. So that should be, if they do go through with this, that will be issued shortly.
So that action may occur before our next council meeting, which is why you wanted to bring this up.
Correct.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, Councilmember Moeller.
During your discussion, I would imagine the subject of the line kind of came up. So by the positioning of these doors, the line that always forms trying to get into Bouchon's would in fact stay the same and kind of go down the same sidewalk, or did they have a different creative solution for the line?
The flow they're proposing to that would be the door that's facing Washington would be the entry door, and the exit door would then have the people exiting right into where the tables and chairs area is now. And they're going to rework the landscaping in the front and move benches and provide a queuing area on that. All right.
So that last part probably addresses your question, really, which is there a way that we can get the line of people off of the sidewalk so that the sidewalk's usable by people that aren't standing in line? Right. And staff is certainly working with the property owner on that.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Hopefully it'll make it faster.
And so you're not clear yet on their timeline with this type of thing?
Although they're trying to stay in sync with the repairs and get everything open at once, and I think they're looking at
I do anticipate it'll go quicker than a few others.
I suspect that to be true. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that update.
Mr. Mayor, I've also like to update the council and the public on the streetlight project. So the streetlights are up on Washington Street. Sidewalk's been completed on the west side. This week they should finish the sidewalks on the east side of Washington Street. I had a meeting today with PG&E. They will be on site Monday to splice over the streetlights on Yount, Fennell, and Oak Circle. So hoping to have the project completed and all the lights on, the new lights on next week.
By Wednesday.
Right.
Good. And I've already had one resident express his concern about the brightness and how they're impacting. Are there any mitigation measures, whether they be shades or anything, or is this kind of the new reality of the lower voltage lights that are a little bit brighter because the spillover is different than what they're used to?
Well, what people have commented on the bright white color, sort of feel like it's a bright, full moon night. The glass is cut to shine into the street and somewhat to not reflect it back. They are full cutoff, so they're dark sky compliance. They're not the light currently on the lights, they shine up. So they are shining down. One of the other advantages, as well as the savings in electricity cost, is for public safety, because you have a white light, so it's better at seeing color. So people will see people in crosswalks, but also if there's any sort of criminal activity that agencies have found that it's easier to identify what's going on with that.
I do think that's a good footnote. We've had several calls into Town Hall thanking us because in many areas you've expressed previously concerns that some of the streetlights weren't all that effective. And I think what you really have, at least initially, is the light quality on these lights are much improved over our 30-year-old lights. And that's just, it looks different, it feels different, and I think overall, part of what we did want to achieve is more light so that it is a safer pedestrian environment.
So one of the messages to share really is this is a new condition. We need to live with this for a little while, and we can, if we need to make an adjustment in the future to mitigate any unforeseen problems, then we can maybe address those issues. But this is kind of the new reality for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, so there's some things can be done if it's really unreasonable. People can't live with it, but most people I've talked with have gotten used to it and they like it after a while. So initially it's like, oh, well, that's different, but then people just get used to it.
Very good. Thank you for that update. Let's move on to council meeting reports. Do we have a report from flood control? Have any comments from the last flood control?
I haven't been to a flood control meeting.
Well, the last one that basically we've been getting a series of updates, and by the time we come to this meeting to talk about what they addressed, they're already well on to the next portion of the project, but they are moving substantially through their reconfiguration of that project. They're on the verge, and they maybe have already done so, return some parking to downtown Napa that's been offline for some time. So that's really significantly impacting the city of Napa, not so much the town of Yountville still to this point, until we go down there and try to park. So we'll move on to NCTPA, Napa County Transportation and Planning Agency. I don't know if you wanted to
I'm happy to
comment. The first thing I was going to mention was the board did appoint Kelly Felker to our Bicycle Advisory Committee. So officially, congratulations for stepping forward and being our representative on that committee. Vice Mayor, did you want to comment on any of the other significant topics at that meeting?
I'll comment on the significant ones that I can comment on. We had a very long closed session. We were there till 5. I think most significantly in the fairly near future, although I'm not quite sure how future, there is going to be a connection between downtown Napa and Suisun City, where the Amtrak station is, and it's going to be a commuter morning and evening trip. And it's mainly aimed towards people in Solano County. There's a fair amount of commuters who come into Napa County. So that's one of the targets, but it will go both ways. And then, as the Vice Mayor did point out, there was several updates of significance. One is that the Jameson Canyon project is continuing to move forward, which is good. There was a lot of discussion about a project that should be coming down the road. I was confused at times of whether there is funding or there's not funding, but I think there's funding, based on what they said, for a flyover at the interchange where Soskull and South Napa hits Highway 29. And that would essentially be coming to the south. Instead of going through the traffic light would be eliminated, and there would be a road bridge flyover that would take the traffic to headed south into the traffic in American Canyon. And what was interesting about that was the studies that Caltrans did looking down the road. They do 30-year projections and modeling, and that intersection is projected to be a very significant problem, much more than it is today when you look at traffic patterns down the road. So what they're doing is kind of doing a phased approach. If you look at that flyover, that intersection, Jameson Canyon, fix those two issues, and then we're going to look further down the road to the American Canyon problem. So what would happen if those were not addressed is you would have major traffic in Napa, you would have major traffic at Jameson Canyon, and then major traffic in American Canyon. So I think a lot of that will is positive. And there was a short presentation about the idea of the wine train being sold and also having a transit component to it. And that is extraordinarily preliminary, but it has some exciting components, and there are many unknowns in that right now, but we'll have to continue to watch that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an interesting presentation by Caltrans, who was projecting their 30-year numbers, the delays at that intersection at Soscol and 29 going from something like 30 to 45 seconds or like one traffic signal cycle to 7 to 8 minutes per intersection, or how long it would take the average car to get through that intersection in 30 years. So they're trying to get out. Obviously, these projects are significant, take many years. So there are a lot of details, and I don't think the funding is completely in, if I remember, environmental impact report stage, possibly, but that's a long-term ongoing issue. And any folks that have been here since we used to stop on Highway 29 at Trancas and watch the train go by know how long those waits could take. So it's that kind of, the scale is similar to that one. Watershed Information Center and Conservancy of Napa County.
Yes, we have not had a meeting since the last time I reported on this. Our next meeting is scheduled for November the 17th. So I'll be bringing that to the council meeting, I guess, the beginning of December.
Any other, thank you, any other council meeting reports?
I have a comment.
If no meeting reports, then let's move on to council comments. Councilmember Mueller.
I'd like to request that we ask our Measure A representative, I'm not even really positive who that is, I can't recall, maybe to come in and give us an update on this subcommittee. And the reason I'm requesting that is because last month we had the discussion about the hydrology and the flooding and all that, and our we might want to be applying for more grants, and with some of the flood work ongoing in Napa, I just wanted to get up to speed again, since I don't remember if we've talked to that person in at least a year, where we are on that and what's going on. So, and maybe our local representative isn't the right person. So,
two thoughts for you on that. One, the Measure A Oversight Committee is an oversight committee that reviews the expenditures and not approve. Our Measure A allocation is ours.
okay.
We just have to have a valid project consistent with the criteria, and staff has been meeting, and we'll continue to meet. We're very confident that all of the projects identified in that preliminary projection meet or exceed the requirements of Measure A. I do think it may be appropriate to ensure that our Measure A rep is attending and participating, but that's a different question. But it does not affect our ability to procure the funding that is sitting. In fact, staff's efforts will be to make sure that you will, as part of your workshop in January, February, be making some guidelines so that then we will be preparing the paperwork to activate our Measure A balance.
So our representative is not in any way an advocate for Yountville?
No. Again, it's a Measure A oversight committee, and what they're looking at on an annual, they review what has been spent and make a determination that the program is being administered and consistent, or if they have questions, they can phrase them, but it's not a pre-approval committee.
Those are your comments for?
I think so, but I think Steve brought up a good question, and maybe this is just something staff can follow up on if that is something that our representative, since we haven't really heard anything, is involved in. That would be good to know.
Fair enough. We've had staff direction on that, so I'm sure they'll follow up with us in a timely manner. Yes.
Jim Shoup.
Yes.
Took us a moment to realize. I am just trying.
We'll
so
get
we
in
will
touch with Mr.
contact
Shoup.
Mr. Shoup and ask him to come fill us in.
Very good. Councilmember Hall.
No comments, thank you.
Vice Mayor Chilton. I do want to just make a few very quick comments. Remind folks the Veterans Day luncheon that's coming up on Wednesday the 9th. And I know the Chamber of Commerce was looking for volunteers. I know a number of the town council and even staff and members of the public participate in that. Every year, a reminder, Yountville hats or other types of hats might be more desired than the hairnets. So for those first-timers, there you go. There's your free advice. But I think a town manager still enjoys putting the hairnet on instead. Also, I just want to mention, especially in light of the devastation that's gone on around the country with the weather, that we had a pretty wonderful weekend here with the town Halloween activities. And again, it's just a matter of seeing the community at its finest, really. We're just really engaged, even before the nextdoor.com community building happens. But, just seeing all the folks out in the streets, meeting neighbors, and sharing all that candy. And I'm sure our local dentist will be receiving many phone calls in the coming weeks.
He did sponsor.
Yeah, he did sponsor that.
Which was a candy-free Halloween
Candy-free event. That one. I also wanted to remind folks of a significant event that's coming up here in the town, the Napa Valley Film Festival. There are many of these programs that list all the movies and various special events that are happening in the town of Yountville as well as in the cities of Napa, St. Helena, and Calistoga. It's a pretty ambitious inaugural event, but I've been very impressed with how they've engaged not only Yountville but all the other communities to showcase great film and also what we have to offer here in the Napa Valley. They also are recognizing 11/11/11, November 11th, as Veterans Day, and they have a series of screenings that are either produced by or stories about veterans, and those are offered at the Lincoln Theater for free Friday afternoon. So additional information can be received if you go on their website, which is NapaValleyFilmFest.com. So good luck to them and all the volunteers. They've tapped into hundreds of volunteers throughout the valley to help bring that film festival to life. So good luck with that. Those are my comments. I'd also like to offer up any future agenda items. Do we have any of note that we need to mention?
We will be continuing our theme of infrastructure and all things infrastructure. You will be receiving an update and overview of the sewage collection system, and also I hope to bring back some information from Upper Valley Waste Disposal on some alternatives for your feedback and direction related to how to proceed with Community Cleanup Day.
Thank you very much. Yes, and I know this is after our town staff report, but quickly, if we could get an update about our Winter Wonderland coming up this Saturday.
This Saturday is our Winter Wonderland, our second annual arts and gift fair at the community center, 10 to 5. We have almost 40 vendors. We're seeing if the weather holds out, we can fit a few more in outside. So all handmade, local artisans. So come on out.
Thank you very much. And I did want to acknowledge also, I believe we had for the last Sunday a local, produce market in the plaza at the community center that I wanted to thank Miss Jenny and her local farmers and the folks that helped. There was a lot of positive feedback from the community on having that local produce available. So I think the season has ended for that. But thanks to her and all the folks that made that happen. With that, I think we're ready for item 13, which is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I suspect this will be another unanimous vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will see you at our next regular meeting, Tuesday, November 15th at 6 p.m. Thank you very much.
I think one motion today.